Time and space in the city. In the street funk on Mac, the smell of the junking junk of the human mind. Ground Zero television heroes, Bailout Cruise and death in my pen. Flag waving thunder, Babylon slumber. In time and space city, working the money pimp computer slave. New mind stomp of circumstance and pomp. And death is video glass and corporate rap. Baggy head winning superstars on deep ribbing trips of ego. And time and space of the city crawls from my tongue like Friday night dressed in hero chic drag. As a chiseled beat of soul and sleep, conch fried sweet. In labor's price jail, in prison perpetrating schemes and doo-doo dreams of beauty. In time and space in Detroit is their mega mind. Backspace is ground zero. Greyhound escapes. And fake shake depth and illusory wealth. And the HMO is dope, smoke, taupe, factory hope. Stereo blues in Center City. And the wicked are celebrated. Resuscitated shells watch we die in the living lifetime. A space change of funky, junky shifts. And we blow rips of walls and winners and movie renters. For miles in the sky and the sweet flag, goodbye. And we become the gun of time and space. And neon freaks in the deep fix of channel hip. We are again exploded and eroded, youth decay. And money won't speak, and time won't creep. We fall into the deep sleep of yes. An affirmation of impotent masturbation. Looking for the good in canned rally time. And we space in the limits of man. And think of cesspool Sundays. We only see the paper heads, paper worlds, the DNA. The space won't speak and time won't creep. And we scream at the glitter of time. Paraded as life. Real as asphalt. Real as industry. Real as death. Two-legged money machine and the speak of doom. Pimped out cartoon war zones between the mind of God and plastic knives. And the rope genius of man. Spitting techno plans. The secret ritual futures of slave work and flesh. And the hype of sex. And the hype of speed, proto-cerebral greed. And the time and space in Spirit City is in the gate of the mouth and hustled bouts. And her head is only a rack for skin. City Hall Mall, only a hat of the freed to see seeds of the common mind. And penny witches of cool. And master fronts of liquid games in the street of color. And dreams that break all speed rhythms of perpetuated nows. And time is the devil and space is never level. As the media limits the real. Sugar-coated pills of glitter and money won't speak. And time won't creep. Insane boogie brain, lame drain of blood on channel hip. The pimp of nasty trips of time and space in the city.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. So glad to see your faces. So glad to see your names. Welcome to Horizons in Poetry 2023, which is made possible by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation. My name is Owolabi Aboyade. I'm so excited to be one of your hosts for tonight's October autumnal gathering. The opening and closing video that we just saw was created by Ascended Visions. It features Ron Allen's recording of the poem Proto Cool from his spoken word CD Painted Mind Code. Horizons in Poetry was founded by Ron Allen, Wardell Montgomery, and John Mason in 1982 in Detroit's Cass Corridor. This monthly open mic series ran for over 2 decades, hosted alternately by Ron Allen, Sharon Smith Knight, and Trinidad Sanchez.
And the Ron Allen Project is a multimedia exhibit reflecting the work and art of the poet, playwright, sobriety mentor, and Dharma priest, Ron Bodhidharma Allen, during the years that he resided in Detroit's Cass Corridor. This exhibit was up for viewing September 22nd through September 30th at the Hannan Center and Kayrod Gallery in downtown Detroit. It was actually held over for a couple of weeks to accommodate the many people who wanted to see it again and again, just to be able to take it all in. I hope that all of you on this Zoom tonight were able to get an opportunity to see it. It was absolutely incredible. I was blown away. Many thanks to the grant team who pulled this off. Carla Harriman, John Jackery, Jim Perkinson, Richard Reeves, and the dedicated and persistent Ruby Woods, as well as Daniel Land, who in the home stretch came on board to help with the editing and creating the digital screen content for the documentary Occur to Yourself. I'm going to now turn the mic back over to my partner, Owolabi, and let him give a brief introduction of himself, and then he's going to grace us with about 10 or 15 minutes of poetry, and then I will come back on and give you a little bit of my poetry as well. And I hope during the interim here, you will take some time to put your name in the chat so that we can hear from you guys during the open mic portion of this as well. We're really excited to hear what you have to say. Owolabi, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Yeah, I definitely want to reiterate how special that exhibit was, and hope that everyone got a chance to see it. And even if you did, or even if you did not, check out the Ron Allen Project. The website is in the chat, so that this project and other aspects that are continuing his legacy, continuing legacies of arts and creativity in the Cass Corridor, continue and advance, and we all could be part of it. I have 3 poems to read today. I appreciate being in this space for this year-end reading. And one of the things that I appreciate and I'm learning from and picking up on today is sometimes readers share the works of other poets that they appreciate. So 2 out of the 3 poems, I will do that for this special year-end session. The first poem that I'm going to read is called 4:02 p.m. It's by Suhair Hamad, a Palestinian author. Her first book of poetry was published in 1996, and it was titled Born Palestinian, Born Black. Wanted to start off giving Suhair, giving her ancestry, giving all those struggling in Palestine a moment with this poem. 4:02 p.m. Poem supposed to be about 1 minute in the lives of 3 women in it. Writing it up, and up the block, a woman killed by her husband. Poem now about 1 minute and the lives of 4 women in it. Haitian mother. She walks through town carrying her son's head, banging it against her thigh, calling out Creole, come see what they've done to my flesh. Holds on to him, gripped tight through hair, wool, his head, all that's left of her. In Tunisia, she folds pay up into stocking, washes his European semen off her head, hands her heart to God and this month's rent to mother, sings Berber, the gold-haired one, favored me, rode and ripped my flesh, I now have food to eat. Brooklyn, lover, stumbles, streets ragged under sneakers. She carries her heart banged up against thighs, crying, ghetto, look what's been done with my flesh, my trust, humanity. Somebody tell me something good. The second poem I want to read, I think I read this one before. I was talking with Carla Harriman, and I think that she brought it back to my attention. And so I'm going to read it again. It has a line in it that we both have enjoyed. This is one of Ron Allen's poems called Urban Poem Number 1. And you can find that on the poetry section in the Ron Allen website. Urban Poem Number 1. Sugar, we are open like summer. You are incandescent in my mouth, folded inside where steam escapes from the molecular faults in our tongues as we broil on the desert flame of form and content. Our language fails us and falls into breath at once, resuscitates and destroyed, where red is no longer a color, but flesh twisted into galaxies of smoke and teeth, our fingers, volcanoes stretching inside of our tower of mutated freedom. You are liquid sepia valleys of real engineered pyramids and fonts. Here we are, a fossilized dung of protein and architecture of war. Weeds tinctured in our soil. We rise like cornbread. We exist in quasi-death, rushing over the cliff of this deadly dance of the holy, male, female, search for oneness. Excuse me. It's been beautiful to be welcomed, to be a part of this community, to be a part of Horizons in Poetry, to be a part of the Weightless Language, to be a part of Detroit cultural and artistic history. And it's been very meaningful, very, very meaningful to me. And I'm working on a reflection just about what it means. I had never met Ron Allen personally. And so it was very special to get to know his work as an individual, as well as his work with these beautiful people that you're going to be hearing from, I'm sure, throughout this evening. Thanks to everybody. Thanks, Ruby. Thanks to everybody for having me to, be a part of hosting as much as I could. I wrote this. This is an excerpt about what it meant to me to get to know Ron Allen as an ancestor. A pocket full of reflections on rebirth, loss, and new horizons. Ron Allen was a thunder tamer, a fire starter, a student of the broken clock. He was even right 6 or 7 times a day. His errors, however, were poetic passages, and dozens of Detroiters tunneled into his violent mind and found respite. His solar powers were clashing syllables that rose and fell like police batons or Zionist bombs. Haven't heard him described as a man of peace, but he laughed like an intimate friend of the Buddha, and he cried in the dark like a big black man who knew Midtown was coming to evict the corridor craftsmen, to scatter their words to the winds. It was in Vietnam that he learned to kill and he learned to cook. He worked as his unit's chef, then went AWOL and wandered foreign streets for months. His unit set down their automatic weapons and returned him back with open arms when he returned, because everyone knows that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. When he came home to Detroit, it was not as a member of the greatest generation. There was no one a Black man was permitted to kill here. There was no one a Black man was permitted to kill here but himself. So he struggled with addiction and tried to kill himself slowly. There were many that he could cook for, however. He became a familiar face amongst the grills and ovens of the Cass Corridor in restaurants that exist now only in memory. Cass Cafe, Union Street, Traffic Jam. This was the moment when Detroit was lovingly labeled by the misguided media the murder capital of our country. The irony of this racialized profile was not lost on Ron Allen, who was taught by this country to kill and came back home with a passion for cooking and making family and a quest to find the poems hiding in his aching heart. Saxophonist and poet Farouk Zibay paints Ron Allen as a griot of Detroit. He says rhymes are the rhythms of the 12th Street pre-riot bongo player, the nascent primordial rhythms of the street, bush, native, who ogled his own core, seeking meaning. Ron Allen is before, where the ghetto and the bush have become one in their wildness, their Africanness, but not limited to a linear process of precedence. His rhythms, his cadence, his cosmology is an ongoing creation that has made this present moment possible. He looked different at the world. I think he looked into the future because decades later, after he had left the earth, his friends would look again to the horizon, see his face, and shout out loud in rhythm and verse. Thank y'all for letting me share some words with you. Up next, the co-host. I'm excited to be a part of this evening with Sonia. Please introduce yourself lyrically and personally.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Oluwalabi, that was, just that last reading of your impression of Ron and what it was like to encounter him virtually was just very, very moving. I, like you, am very honored and humbled to be included in this really just wonderful project for a giant of Detroit like Ron Allen. He had an incredible influence on me, as I'm sure that he did for many of the people that are in this space right now. And I'm thankful that I was allowed to participate in this honoring of him. I am going to read a couple of poems. I hope I haven't read them before. I don't remember. But if I did, hopefully you enjoyed it the first time, and so you'll enjoy it the second time. But many of you who know me know that I'm working on a collection of poems, been working on for a while, on a collection of poems about the miraculous Henrietta Lacks. And so I'd like to share a couple of those pieces, just a brief intro. The pieces that I'm writing are persona poems, and they're in the voices of actors in her life, family members primarily, and doctors and caregivers. And so this first piece that I'm going to do is called Crazy Joe. And there was a man who was in love with Henrietta. It's not the person that she ended up marrying. And so this person, well, you'll hear it in the story, because it's a story poem called Crazy Joe. And this is Joe's sister speaking. Her name is Sadie. So this is Crazy Joe in the voice of Sadie. My brother had no land, no house, no money to speak of, nothing but his name, grinning, which is what he was doing whenever he saw Henrietta coming, mouth wide open like his heart, teeth firm and square like his shoulders. Sometimes when we were in the field, taking flower buds off the tobacco stalks, he would turn and offer her a bud, slide one behind her ear. That was when we were young, before he jumped in the frozen pond and refused to come out till she agreed to a date, before he guided her up the narrow stairs to sit in nigger heaven next to the projector, clicking louder than his beating heart, before they would watch Buck Jones, who gave up being a cowboy to play one in the movies, who would ride in on his horse Silver and save the day. And long before Daddy would find him laid out in the front yard, drunk and bleeding, his hands still on the handle of a rusty pocket knife, wedged in his chest when he learned Henrietta was marrying Day. Cousin Cliff used to say Joe was an over-average man, big and strong, tall as a Virginia green ash. But when he realized he'd lost Henrietta, he fell just like those trees did when they got hit by that emerald ash borer beetle. We had to cut them all down, planted pine and cottonwood instead. They're starting to come in now, but they don't stand as tall or as firm as that old ash did. And I don't think they ever will. This next piece is called A Conversation on Cure, and it's in Henrietta's voice. Excuse me. A Conversation on Cure. The truth of what is happening to me lies somewhere between their eyes and the other side of this wall, where they whisper and write, where their soft souls make the floors wince and whine. In their white, they appear like haints, silently gliding past my door every time that bell rings, the bell that means a baby was born, that means there is fresh cord blood. What do they do with it anyway? They think I don't know nothing, that I don't see what they do here. Their round help that gives you hope before bringing you back to where you started. They don't hold their clipboards close anymore now that they know I can't read much. They tell me less than do the birds outside my window, less than the night with its roomy, unblinking eye. I might not be able to read a book, but I can read between the lines on their foreheads. I can read the way their lips press together and make a flat line before they force the corners up a little. They tell me there is no mold or no metallic way, no medicine to stop this twisting, knotting inside me. Nothing to ease the pain that makes me want to jump clean out the window into the waiting, outstretched arms of a maple or an oak. But I tell them to look again, look closer through their little lenses. I tell them if my grandma Chloe were here, if my mama was here, they would have a cookhouse cure. I just know it. This piece is in the voice of Mary Kupasek. She worked in the morgue, and she was, well, you'll hear it in the poem. You'll hear it in the poem. This is called Footnote 1. I tell myself I will not mess this up, that they will never know how scared I am. But I hover in the doorway like the girl I am until Wilbur calls me in. I see her body laid out before him, her chest already open like an ancient book, each organ a fallen country of soldiers, each waving a white flag of surrender. I can't help but think of pearls, how they are formed, the calcium carbonate engulfing some foreign material, a speck of sand perhaps, the way the hardening tries to ease discomfort, the way we value that reaction, culture it in mollusks and in ourselves. 2. I do not want to see her face or know that she is beautiful. I do not care that her teeth are straight. I fit myself into the space by one of her arms raised above her head, as if even in death she were a student, eager to ask, no, to answer a brilliant question. When Wilbur holds out some piece of her, I extend a petri dish. He lays her on the auger, the way a jeweler places a ring in a presentation box. I seal it, set it aside, and pick up another. 3. When there is nothing left to sample, I gather my dishes and think how her open cavity is a night sky full of stars, their beautiful violence consuming themselves. I do not notice the scar where her deviated septum was repaired. I do not notice the bruising on her wrists and ankles that were tied to bed rails to keep her from thrashing, like a hooked fish in this hospital with pain. Then there is the red shift. I see the chipped polish of her toenails, red, and I am reminded she is not a receding galaxy. I am not a disinterested observer. We are the same. We are both women, she and I, flesh and bone, heart and body, subject to the curiosities of men. This last piece that I want to read for you is a Ron Allen poem. It is from Neon Jawbone Riot, and it is called Poem Number 2. It is the real me, opening your head, cutting your cysts. It is the real me, leaking poems into your lips, splitting your atoms. You are vinegar sweet, with Mars in your eyes. I am brick wet blood. You still searching for real? Walking up my tongue, claustrophobic in my head. It is the real me, coughing you out, choking at poem level. You rise above my saliva, a lion, chewing my remains. All right, now let's see if we have any folks that have signed up. Oh, well, Albie, do we have some folks on the list?
Not yet, not yet.
What? Oh, come on, folks. I see here on the list, we've got on the screen here, we've got 25 people in the audience. I know somebody has something to read.
Sonia, you forgot to invite folks to.
Oh, did we not do that? I thought that we did invite them to sign up and put their name in the chat.
You did it real. They might not have heard it, so let's reiterate it.
Okay, all right. Well,
yes.
If you are so inclined, You 25, you fabulous 25 folks, right? If you are so inclined, please put your name in the chat box. And if you don't know how to do that, there's a chat, there's a bar, a toolbar at the bottom of your screen, and you can open up the chat and just drop your name in there, and we will give you an opportunity to bless us with some of your original work. And I see that Charles Gervin has raised his hand, and so we may start with him, and then we may also, okay, Madeline's, okay, so folks are coming in. Awesome, awesome. Okay,
We're
thank
gonna
you
do
all.
Yes, you should put the word open so we know that you want to read.
Okay, so start your phrase with open mic, and I saw that Jim Perkinson did that as well. Thank you, Jim, for modeling that perfect behavior. And we will grab all of you in the order in which we saw your names appear in the chat. And so we're going to start with Mr. Gershwin.
Well, actually, how about we do Kim Hunter first and then do the open mic?
Oh, do the open mic after Kim? Okay, well, okay, then I can introduce Kim. We can certainly do that. Yeah, all right. So, Kim Hunter, who is the author of the fiction collection, The Official Report on Human Activity, right, which came out from Wayne State University Press in 2018. Kim is also a winner of the 2018 Indies Silver Award for short stories. The book's manuscript earned him a Kresge Literary Arts Fellowship in 2012. Kim, who is just really a fabulous, fabulous writer. He also co-directed the Woodward Line Poetry Series for 13 years, earning a Night Arts Challenge, right, in Detroit in 2013. Kim's poems have appeared in Black Renaissance Noir, What I Say, Innovative Poetry by Black Writers in America, and many, many other anthologies and places in print. Kim has published 2 collections of poetry, Edge of the Time Zone, which I am happy to have a copy of, and Born on Slow Knives. Born on Slow Knives was published by Past Tense Press in 2001, and The Edge of the Time Zone was published by White Print in 2009. I'm going to now invite Kim to the microphone to read and grace us with some poetry. And you guys keep putting your name in the chat and add the word open in front of that. And once we're done with Kim, we'll open it up for some Q&A with him, and then we'll have the open mic after that. Okay? All right. Kim, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonia, Anita, Owolabi, Autumn, the entire Ron Allen Project crew for this, for all the work you've done, the exhibit, the whole piece. That was a lot of work. And thanks to all of you all for showing up. I really love and miss Ron. He was one of the first people to have me read in public and the first to ever pay me to read in public. There are too many Ron Allen stories to tell. I will say this one thing. When I read one of his poems in public, someone half jokingly asked me to do a Ron Allen imitation while I read the poem, and I half jokingly replied, not even Ron Allen could do a Ron Allen imitation. He's that hard to capture. So writing for my day job involves me being as clear and unambiguous as possible to reach the widest possible audience. And so when I write creatively, I'm seriously attuned to the fact that folks won't get everything on the first pass, though I hope you get something on the first pass, even if you can just feel things that you can't articulate, which can be more compelling than actually knowing. It can be more engaging than actually knowing. So while I'm still in your good graces, I will begin with something I take to be relatively clear and accessible. A poem called Detroit, the War Years, 1701 to Present. A few quick notes. The sound of young America was a Motown slogan. There's a reference to the phrase, the arsenal of democracy, which is what Detroit was called in World War II. Ossian Sweet was a Black physician in Detroit whose home and family were assaulted by a white mob when he moved into a white neighborhood in 1925 in Detroit. The Great American Songbook were songs mostly from Broadway and Hollywood that became hits and jazz standards, roughly from the years 1920 to 1960. And lastly, the poem references the Battle of the Overpass, where Henry Ford sent goons to battle Union leaders. And I want to send this out to all the workers who've gone on strike, seeking, and in some cases attaining, recovering some of the wealth and power that they create. Detroit, the war years, 1701 to present. We invented the car and the factory, not the objects themselves, but what the words and music came to mean over time. We made the sound of young America to replace the Great American Songbook, which held sway during the tribulation of Ossian Sweet, that yet survives stamped on these foolish things. We rolled democratic arsenals until the wheels refused their abuse. The city was never founded. About 300 years before this was written, French colonizers looked at Indians sideways and lied to them, but left the genocide part to the fathers of America. On a distant planet related by blood loss, Henry Ford founded Vapid, visionary assholes perpetrating in Detroit. He shaved off workers' facial identities, removed their hearts to glass containers filled with river water, and hung the rented body parts from the ceiling to glow like captive stars, to illuminate the work of the factory, to fire furnaces that turned iron to gold. But the workers missed being their old human selves, gathered, agitated, organized for the return of organs and identity. And what turned out to be the opening act for bloodlettings in 43 and 67. Workers that the instigators of his wealth were beaten and shot by police and goons whose brains Ford had bought and ate from a bowl as he watched the carnage from on high. Depending on the distance between machines in the factory and the rooms where you ate and slept, you could leave for work a British royalist and return home a Bolshevik. You could walk from your house being a German proto-fascist and return home an Italian anarchist. There were even rumors of Southern racists showing up at home after a day's work, transformed into Mexican revolutionaries or Lebanese intellectuals. The more east, west, north, south, the more exotic, the more east, west, north, south the encounter, the more exotic and unlikely the metamorphoses. The Black diamond nexus of African descendants was rare indeed, but as hard as it might have been to mix Molotov cocktails in the basement of a church, inspiration could be found. In those days, when the factory changed shifts, the movement of people tilted Earth on its axis and brought the seasons. You could rent the river and part it to let you and your friends cross over to Canada, a little bit closer to freedom. Currently, Belle Isle, the exile capital, turns golden black in the summer. The bass from car speakers drives fish onto the beach. Deer sing in the island's rapidly defoliating woods to lure dogs and small children. Currently, falling mainland population is harder, darker to count. House-to-house searches relieve low-income families of water service, reveal a rise in prison population. Arrest record crowds the suspect's resume. It used to take millions to feed the machines in the factory. They ran low on white people, so let black, brown, beige into the various bellies of the various beasts that now only eat hundreds at a time for dollars that used to be a lot of money, but never equal to power and justice that agitators agitated for. the ones who still miss their old human selves.
Oh my gosh. Whew.
So I'm going to go right to the next poem. Is called Like a Boat. It looked like a boat. The people who kept it afloat and those who could not afford the cargo or to admit it was a death filter ignored, pretended against the skin-thin closeness of blood bucket devastation, because mostly Africans got squeezed through the filter. But if you take a good look at the meal of the average white bystander of the time, when there were no bystanders, their shoe and roof holes, their doctorless children, you will see that the skull and crossbones of the slave ship, the skull and crossbones of the sail of what looked like a boat, shadowed a whole lot of people, too tearful to admit darkness in the light of day, too close to hell for the devil to resist. Currently, many self-proclaimed bystanders want to ignore who got the least rotten food in the biggest slaveholding houses and who most raped, tortured flesh he denied as his own flesh, who used horses and rode dogs to hunt people escaping to freedom, to humanity, who looked like me below deck, chained to corpses and corpses to be, at the bottom of something that fooled too many because it looked like a boat. So this next piece, I think about my mother and father because my parents are mentioned at the end, but it's a poem of one of those tropes that everything just repeats constantly. It's got I don't forget what the name of that is, but it's called Body Beyond. Waited till the last day to change my alias, forgot my alias and couldn't get back into the house, crashed the car with a gear shift into the wrong alias, left my alias in the rain and flooded streets when I tried to bring it inside, held my alias underwater to help it grow gills, slept with my alias next to the bed to appear anonymously in dreams and get honest impressions of the waking world, used my alias to shield my given name until I could grow into my parents' subconscious desire to find solace in a body beyond words. The next three poems I'm going to read, now we get into the obscure, esoteric, you won't get it on the first thing that's in my brain all the time. These three poems, thank Rebecca Mazzi and Chris Tisch, because these three poems appear in Threefold, which is a really great effort online. And so I'll just go right into it. Time grew. Back when time grew on trees and the fruit of knowledge was a snake's mouth away, I tried to turn on the television in the middle of the day, night, when no one was watching, so the images would not repeat my mistakes as I changed the channel in reckless hope, which is strange for a place where everything is for sale, especially our time. Still, I went down to the sea in search of moments without price tags. Waves roared into the skull cave, carved out by the surrogate owners of everything. Can you help me get this hook out of my mouth? A dolphin in a sharkskin suit asked me. I have a job interview, prison audition, murder trial, circus shooting, she said. And who knows what will happen if I'm late, if I'm on time, if I show up. I was about to forge excuses required by the hook manufacturer to heal the wound when her family swam up to us. You're not a domestic, they admonished her with their permanent smiles. Only humans believe in destiny and sales receipts as proof that something happened. We love you for your instincts. Let's cauterize the wound without fire or documents. There are oceans of sun and storm ahead of us. Swimming away from me, they shouted, "Count the body you're in," as I searched in vain for my likeness. What I hate about love. This is a poem that there's some media in it. I have a love-hate relationship with media. I've made my living in media for decades, and I still have a love-hate relationship with it. But anyway, what I hate about love. It shows up more on screen than in flesh. Dollar store laxatives and theatrical popcorn give the illusion of emptiness that can only be filled with multiverse computer demons swallowing their own tail in stereo on screens that claim to be your mother, father, the lost dog you never had. Capsule movie reviews tattooed on digital retinas insist it was a communal experience, alone in the darkness of the public-private entertainment catacomb, but they omit the sequels and prequels of temporary lobotomy. If only you had taken the advice of your bartender, who used to be a psychiatrist before she was a bookie, who earned enough to pay the losers, and after they'd had a few drinks, she'd school them in statistics until they swore off betting and organized their neighbors into cadres out in the open, away from the glare of the doom scroll and virtual virality. Her purple-haired students, her multicolored loved ones, her multi-gendered comrades swarm the headquarters, cross the moat, occupy the temple of moneylenders, where you just got a job training people how to be trained. But maybe in the spit and sweat of the crowd that knows it is a hydra, an organism, there is a chance for something more glorious and ignobly human than anyone has ever feared. As you get older, you think a lot more about life and death. I've always thought a lot about life and death, but it's impinging on me now as I approach 70 years of age. I have decades to go, but it just gets you thinking about it. I mean, when I was 12, I loved Edgar Allan Poe, so death has been on my shopping list for a long time. So this is called the Come and Go Lounge. Two skeletons, complete with nervous nerves and organic organs, emerge from outside the Come and Go Lounge near the crossroads, puzzled and happy to speak through their bones before they lay down in the hope of flesh yet to be and those that led them to this place. Named and renamed until painted layers peel with a kind of music in the marrow. Soundtrack to the question, whatever happened on the cave wall, under the glow of the fireworks turned rocket, on the corpse-strewn field of weapons as the model for hell, in towers of towers for towers' sake, a worrisome parade of occurrences and stuff as we look for ourselves in other skeletons across the way. Look for that common currency, love with no value but love, with organs failed or missing, limbs and function erased in time, on the corner of the mountain and the vacant lot, at the intersection of the alley and swollen river, where forest overgrows the brand new parking structure, we stop for lunch to call and respond. Do you come here often? Only to empty my soul and make way for the future. Let's see here. So this poem has another sort of frame to it. It's if you've been on a plane, sometimes in the old days in planes, you used to fly over stuff and the pilot would tell you you're going to see this or you're going to see that. You're looking out this window, looking out that window, and so. And this is somewhat from that. This is called Designated Shapeshifter. As your designated shapeshifter, and on behalf of our crew, I ask that you please remain in your birth pockets until we arrive at our destinations, where tribalism and other fiery delusions can be safely rerouted. Those on one side of the vehicle may view chasms of fear and isolation. On the other, mountains of romance deceived in clouds. You can exchange notes later. They will all mirror one another in hot glances of overheard conversation blown through windows wide as questions, thoughtless as air, one look and nothing. Maybe a sun-tinged distance on the horizon, maybe the shadow of a lullaby, maybe a mine shaft intake before you breathe, I love you, good night. So this is the excerpt from an unfinished novel called The Black Kid from Earth. Yeah, that's as far as I'll go with that, talking about that. Passengers crowded into what had been luxurious, exclusive accommodations. Passengers crowding into what had been luxurious, exclusive accommodations could feel the distance between the vehicle's past and present, the attempted merger of the two. Many obviously new seats had been crammed into the spacecraft without much in the way of calculations for room to recline and rest, let alone sleep. There was little space to maneuver, though the extra seats did make it easier to guide yourself through the ship in zero gravity. The retrofits took up what had been space for large virtual games and receptors whose telltale interfaces, hardwire bolts, were left protruding from the floor because of the corporation's haste to get things moving and cash in. The rushed installation of additional toilet rooms where waste from in-flight suits was collected and jettisoned meant some of the doors to the restrooms didn't quite latch. Workers only had time to remove or replace a few of the gold-plated lounge doors with lighter material to make liftoff cheaper and easier. One polished marble bar, sans bartender, had been left in place. The sumptuously curved, subtly lit shelves behind it held but a few empty containers of exclusive spirits that had been requested by wealthy patrons in the ship's former life. Now it was a self-serve facility accommodating a wide variety of taste. Olivia tried to make the best of the situation, as usual. Her plans were proceeding apace, as usual. She had almost become used to how the corporation moved with things not quite fixed. Regardless, she and her family members were on the craft, headed away from Earth, and she worked on the problems ahead of them to distract everyone from the problems they'd left behind, such as the wildfires back on Earth, of which they had a great view. The smoke in some places was as thick as thunderheads. Passengers were almost relieved when the craft veered and accelerated away from where they could see the disasters. Olivia anticipated arriving at the large orbiting factory, rested and ready, even as she constantly revamped and rememorized an ever-growing list of prioritized tasks. She was comforted that her list was far more thorough than the relatively skimpy official assignments from the company, Dial-A-Rocket. She didn't have to compensate in her work for the storm surges or heat deaths as she would have on Earth. She only needed to keep a few thousand alive with manufactured air and near food and water. All of that would only begin after she arrived with the first few hundred workers on board with her. She sought out the other department heads on the ship to continue conversations that had begun on Earth, but had been truncated by preparations needed for liftoff. The more representatives she spoke to during the journey, from energy to human service to critical systems to product alignment, the more assured she became and the better she felt about everyone's safety. She reveled in absorbing as much information as possible when it came to what people needed to work in safety and comfort. She had studied how the factory work suits derived from the infamous metal skin, would provide warmth and flexibility for those working near the super cold production rooms. The adjustments needed for the gravitational spin of the massive facility to which they were headed, the way the backup oxygen and nitrogen and water infrastructure would kick in with the slightest sign of failure of the main system. She felt most grounded and tranquil when fitting all these sorts of details into data to create strategies large and complex enough to keep the factory running safely once production began. One sure moral booster turned out to be the food. Everyone was pleasantly surprised by the buttery wonders of near macaroni and cheese, moist, delicately textured stuffing with spices that revealed themselves slowly, like a good story, near baked goods with gorgeous icing colored and tasting like real fresh citrus fruit. It looked and smelled amazingly close to the real thing, went down like a dream, and everyone was reminded was at least as heavy as anything on earth. Every bite of sweetly conspicuous calorie consumption made Olivia glad she and her family regularly practiced capoeira. She made her way in the glare of the vehicle's bright interior lights, which had been insisted upon by the lawyers, and spoke to her fellow passengers with the calm sincerity she'd learned from years of statecraft. Even in her flight suit, her short grain afro and glasses, she never made time for vision enhancement surgery, gave her a welcoming, friendly librarian, grandmotherly gravitas. Most felt at ease asking her for guidance. The great distance from Earth would necessitate a great interdependence between them. They would become this extended family despite everything. Yes, the production is dubious, and at least for some of us, comes with moral questions, if not outright problems, she admitted defensively whenever anyone expressed doubt or regret about the work they had applied for, seemingly of their own free will. Yes, the digital interface used to design and in part construct the facility we'll live in is, shall we say, a cousin to the one implicated in the bloodletting of years ago. Our program, though, is at best a distant cousin to that one. To my mind, all of this means we must rely on one another to push through, given the objective reality of being tens of thousands of miles from Earth for some time. Olivia had hoped the company would soon give them a date certain for replacements to come and allow the first set of workers to return. She had also hoped she'd done enough to distance the platform that they relied on, the digital platform they relied on, from the one that was implicated in the convulsion. As she worked to assure everyone else, she worked to assure herself as well. Virtually everyone she spoke with agreed with her assessment of the situation. A few of the white people required a bit more convincing of the imperative need to work together, so a few of the Black and brown people sought more reassurance based on the white people who needed more reassurance. Still, there was only one encounter on the trip that left her truly uneasy. She found him after returning to her section and noticing for the first time a small, barely lit cove. He had managed to dim the lights over his seat or gotten someone to do it for him. His face seemed both nondescript and familiar. Pale skin contrasting dark hair strands messily sticking out of his headgear. He was the only person she'd seen still wearing headgear after the liftoff, and he was one of the few strapped into his seat, though he'd clearly been about the cabin at some point because he was sipping on a straw attached to a Scotch bag, a single malt she would have had if she weren't so busy and hadn't hated tasting good whiskey through a tube. Hello there, she extended her hand and smiled her cordial business smile. Turner, Olivia, Logistics and Implementation. Oh, L&I, the Brainiacs. That's a lovely name tag too. Olivia, it fits you. Kurt flashed his teeth and fell back into a blank expression. An A and not an O. I see. Anyway, are there any waitresses on this thing? Do I have to get up, keep unstrapping, and get my booze? That was a joke. I don't expect much from these people. At least we don't have to listen to them complain about the heat, the smoke, the tornadoes, or whatever it is this week. And your name is? She used, asking her best teacher greeting a new student voice. I didn't think I needed a name tag, but Zedfig, Kurt. Olivia strove to maintain a neutral, positive expression at having finally met the head of operations and being struck to her core with his utter shallowness and likely incompetence. She was reminded why she frequently wondered and worried about the corporation's decision-making process. She feared her already broad scope of duties would expand in ways she had not foreseen. She thought of her family and friends, many of them napping peacefully on board, wholly unaware of what she discovered. She tried to maintain some smattering of hope that Zedfig was one of those folks whose outward lack of social skills, awareness, and focus belied their abilities in other areas, though her instincts, a concept she distrusted, told her otherwise. I'm not sure who you're referring to when you say these people, Olivia said, working to maintain eye contact, yet not seem too forceful. I believe those of us in leadership must keep people's spirits up, and that requires cohesion. This is my first time in space, and I'm sure that's true for many others. Kurt perked up. My mother, he said wistfully, would love outer space. When I was a boy and hurt my toes kicking bricks, she would say, Kurt, sit on the back porch and listen to the birds, when they sing and when they're silent. She would pay attention to stuff like that, so I know she'd like this. It's not as black as I thought it would be. The stars and the sun make it not so bad. Not that there's anything wrong with black, or white for that matter. There's just so much. He silently praised himself for being sharp enough to throw in that last part, since he was talking to a black woman. That sense of accomplishment brought a calm that reminded him of the silence between birds and how he dreamed of finding that again. Later, in rare moments of relaxation with Norman, their son Rodney, and daughter-in-law Nzinga, the scene with Kurt Z would seep into Olivia's head, an earworm, an insidious splinter that surfaced the doubt she quietly harbored about her family having secured positions on the facility. No matter his flaws, she worked to assure herself. Per his somewhat Saturnalian response, Zegfig has human parents. Therefore, there must be hope. Still, in those early days after arriving at the factory, she worked hard to distract herself from her ever-growing concerns about Kurt and the entire mission. That would all change later, when her marriage collapsed under the painful weight of her son's murder. Oh, okay, got through that. That was a slog. It felt like a slog. Hope it wasn't too sloggy. So the last thing I'm gonna read is like a little kids poem for adults, and it rhymes. It's called They Say Triangle. They say triangle, they say star, black razor wire on a white guitar, play blue, play purple, sing red as night, cut the top off a mountain and drink the light. Foam from the fire, smoke from the ice, sunspots crawl on the neck like lice. This is the blues that shade the sky, made a baby from the dust of a butterfly, grew house of shadow and door of song, made flesh walk hot as the day is long. Who's your mama? Where are your bones? The round spinning world won't leave you alone. Okay. I hope I stayed on time. I think I timed that out.
Awesome. 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 Thank you so much. Thank you, Kim. We're going to, we see that you guys are putting your names in the chat for the open mic. We'll open that in just a minute, but I want to see if there are any questions for Kim. I know when I knew that I was going to be hosting for you, I got really excited and I went to my old books from back in the day. And so I have some questions that I hope you have a couple minutes to answer. And then we'll.
Sure. I prefer answers, but I'll take questions. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, but I'm just curious. So, the role that history plays in your work, because reading through a number of pieces, you're talking about a lot of larger social shared history, that things that we might learn in school, or things that we might see in the newspaper, but you also talk about some personal history too. You've got some things in there about your parents and their lives, and I'm just kind of curious as to the reason for the prominence of history in your work.
I wouldn't actually call myself a Marxist, but I'm a socialist and a person who's influenced by Marxism. And one of the central tenets of that is the role of history. History, the material conditions that people find themselves in. History is, the other thing is that history is something that's really ignored in the United States. And now they're not only trying to ignore it, they're trying to lie about it. There's a whole fascist wing that's trying to lie about history, lie about the two principal oppressions that had to happen to make this country: the taking of the land from people who, a lot of whom didn't even have a concept of owning land, because it was too big and good for any one person to own. And then, of course, the enslavement of people of African descent. Without those two things, you don't have the United States. And those are the two things that they want to ignore. Of course, workers' rights are huge as well. And if workers could understand history, their place in it, the fact that they create all the wealth, I think we would have a bit more of folks coming together. But context is everything. History is everything. I mean, as Faulkner said, the past is not dead. It's not even the past. We live with history. It's how we got here. We wouldn't exist without it. It's kind of crazy. It's like climbing up a ladder and saying there are no rungs behind you. It's everything. So that's, context is everything, and history is a huge, huge piece of context. The personal stuff, it goes in one or two ways. Like, it's either in a little nook or cranny somewhere that is odd and it just remains in its own odd little place, or it illuminates something bigger. Like, so when I was growing up, I encountered Black Panthers, right? And that had an effect on me. They frightened me. I'll just be quite honest. I agree with a lot of what they were saying, but I was in middle school, Southwestern, 9th grade. But anyway, that sort of stuff I will put into the poem as to illuminate something bigger. I met later I met a lot of Black Panthers, but two Black Panthers who I have, two things they said are in a poem of mine, which I could have read, but I didn't. Ron Scott, who founded the Detroit chapter in 68 or 69, co-founded it, told me this story about how he had a hard time getting Black folks from the South to be radicalized. And then only in his later years did he understand why that happened. The poet whose name is escaping me, Catherine would know his name. I can't even bring it up. He was a Harlemite. And he told me this story about you're not supposed to eat before you give a talk at a church or civic club if you're a Panther, because it'll slow you down. And the one time that he did, his speech was a wreck. But what he was supposed to say in this speech was, "If anything stands between you and freedom, burn it down." And I put that in one of my poems too. So anyway, yeah, history.
Thank you. Want to open it up to any of the other participants? Do you have questions to ask If you have a little gesture, you can put it in the chat, or you can make a little gesture and you can unmute yourself. Comments or questions to ask for the conversation with Kim Hunter?
This is Autumn. I just wanted to jump in and say that folks will not be able to unmute themselves at will. So if you could just put in the chat if you'd like to come in, I will then ask you to unmute your microphone.
No? Okay. Well, I think we're going to maybe move into the open mic portion of things. And
We
we'll
do have
come
a
back
question.
to questions. Oh, we do have a question. A question came up. Awesome. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Aaron, I can read that out loud from Aaron. Kim, what is your favorite poem that you've written?
Wow. That would be hard because I can't even remember the poems, everything that I've written. I'd say the Come and Go Lounge comes close. And maybe actually the poem that was a poem that I didn't read. That's and I can't remember the name of it. I could probably put it up somewhere. But it's the poem that contains the line, if something stands between you and freedom, burn it down. And it also contains a bit about the Motown hot dog test. So just I'll really quickly. So I used to work with this guy who used to work at Motown, Kayrod Witherspoon. He was one of the few Black TV directors in the city of Detroit. And he said that Berry Gordy had this hot dog test. And when they were starting out, they didn't have a lot of money to record things. So if they recorded something, it cost a lot of money. So we had to make sure that it was going to try to make sure it was going to be a hit. So here was a test. Somebody would come in and play a song on the piano. And so Berry would gather the people around and say, okay, you're on the street, you're hungry. You got $1, you hear that song, and there's a hot dog stand. Do you buy the hot dog or do you buy the song? If people say, I'm gonna buy the hot dog, they didn't record the song. People say, I gotta have that song, then they would record the song. That was the hot dog test. And that's in that poem. So when I got the Motown and Black Panthers in one poem, and it wasn't Stokely, Kwame Ture, who passed away as Kwame Ture, but he's a poet. God, oh my God, why can't I think of his name? I'll think of it. I'll think of it later on and put it in there.
You're welcome. And we have one more question, which will be a quick question. Leslie Reese says that very much enjoyed your reading, especially the poems that went over my head, and just wants to know, could you say the name of your novel?
The Black Kid from Earth. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And if we have time at the end, we'll come back and open up Q&A one more time if there's any time at the end. Right now, we have 5 people that signed up for the open mic. Each person will have up to 5 minutes each. If you want to add your name to the open mic, we'll see if time allows any more after these 5. Feel free to write the word open and your name. And we'll go to these 5 and then we'll see where we're at with time. If there's anyone else that is inspired after hearing more from the Black Kid from Earth, please put your name and the word open in the open mic. And first, we have here to bless us. It is no small thing. The first one to sign up, and one of the driving forces of the Ron Allen Project. Please welcome to the open mic, Ruby Woods.
Thank you. Autumn, I want to share something? Want to share
Yeah,
it in?
you should be able to.
Okay.
How can I help?
I think I'm doing it. Okay.
Awesome.
This Sunday at our church, yesterday, we celebrated Dia de los Muertos, as well as the life of an elder, John Angry, who passed, I believe it was last year. John would have been 94 this year, and he was a dancer. And this was on the back of the obituary, and this is John's poem. And so I want to share it with you. A dancer. A dancer is a winged thing and spinning that pauses for a moment there, stretched out on air, suspended between hope and fear. And it is not either God or man, not in that moment when the apex of his upward arc is reached and no descent begins. Stopped there for that unbelievable breath of time, he becomes man's dream of flight, the living motif of his soaring song. In this effortless moment between the leaving and the landing, built for in secret hours of pain, is gathered all the energies of aspiration that gives us this second of glory on the doorstep of heaven, and returns us gently when the moment is over to begin again. That's all. It's for John Angry, recent ancestor.
Thank you, Ruby. That was very, very beautiful. If you're sure you don't want to take any extra time, because you know we love hearing your work. But I'd like.
I think, I think others have more to share, so.
Okay. But we're going to keep it moving, and our next open mic reader is Mr. Charles Gervin.
Hello, everyone. Kim, I just got to say this is great to hear you read. And while I was listening, the rhythm of it reminded me of being in a city. I used to walk the streets of Detroit a lot when I lived there, and living here in Washington, I also do a lot of walking, and in the pace of walking and the rhythm of the traffic and the pedestrians, and I guess as the images in your work was coming together, just that was my response. It reminded me of just the pace of the city. So anyway, just wonderful stuff, and it's great to hear you. I have one recent poem of my own and a very short one from a fellow Detroiter that I'd like to revisit. This is my own poem. It's called Do-Rag. Ron DeSantos meets Mickey Mouse at the gates of hell. They chuckle, grin, and bear it. Mickey shakes his ears, and our Ron, shakes his ass. They're both clowns, and they know it. Mickey, however, is an old hand at it. His first gig was all shucking and jiving, minstrelsy on film. Course sight formed around a campfire where tall tales merged with shadows. Here, there was no pretense at truth, whereas our Ron, is a new kind of clown. He won't make you smile with adorable ears in a squeaky voice. There is no music, no flowers, only guns and wars and bad men, drag men, while Mickey smirks, dances with Minnie and Squeak. Our Ron, howls like a scary crown in a cinematic nightmare, creating a magical fiefdom of horror in a Floridian swamp. And the poem I'd like to revisit, just give me a second, I'll pull it up. Okay. Is actually a poem from a friend of mine who's no longer with us, Alan Atkins. And this poem is called Tina Turbine. You are the wandering sailor with a girl in every port, sailing the gray concrete seas in whatever craft you can pick up. The men in the button-down suits are doing something quite strange. They rock to a natural beat, celebrating the return of the sun. You are a sweet taste in my mouth. Your scent lingers in my mind. I know how you can make me feel good. But now I worry about my credit rating. The airship of fools are coming in. Let's hide in an office downtown. Among the tasteful furniture, we can spin a groove. You are a golden tart with a smile that lets you get away with all sorts of crime. Bad girl with a magnetic allure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that, the imagery and the pictures for our minds. Up next in the open mic, we have welcoming to the spotlight, Madeline Wildman.
Hi, everyone. This is a lot of new faces for me tonight. I met Olabi about 2 weeks ago, and I was invited to come into this event, and it's been really amazing just to see a little sliver of this living creative community that y'all have, and it's really beautiful. So thanks for welcoming me. This poem that I'm going to read is about the honey locust, which probably many of you know. It's a tree, and if you don't think you know it, you actually do. It's planted all over our cities, and I felt called to read it just because a couple weeks ago I was walking down Cass Avenue and admiring the golden leaves that lined the sidewalks and watching them kind of sprinkle through the air. So that's what this is about. Honey locust, hidden in plain light. You sway the summer breeze silent from my mind until one October morning, your body burst the August sun. Oh, saccharine sapling, caramel-coated lightning strike, autumn's party pinata, your sweetness spilt as confetti swirls beneath each passing car, flitters across the sidewalk, gilds the gutters, then tickles my toes, my feet, which still stumble these streets. Trip over the cracks in my ego and grasp tight to each limb of this life, some concrete fever briefly broken by the ease with which you gift your glint to this world. Friend, I wonder why I never find you running wild in some untamed forest, always pruned in the park, the concrete planter box, you brightening our fractured landscape by our own design. Some say we chose you for your alleged toughness, your tolerance of city drought, dense alkaline soils, salt-soaked noxious breath of my exhaust pipe. But couldn't we have put you here for a reason as simple as this? for these shimmering sidewalks, street litter now wrapped like a gift? Couldn't the arborist have planted you thinking only the future generations of overgrown girls? Speechless in a tunnel of gold, no choice but to thrust her hands into these flickering embers of decay, to grab them by the fistful, lift them towards the heavens, arms wide, eyes closed, baptized in your body, dying so she might remember why she is alive. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Maddie, and welcome to the community. The honey locust tree. I'm going to have to Google that so I can see that. And next time I see one and encounter one in the city, I'll address it.
Awesome. Yeah.
Our next open mic reader is going to be Mr. Jim Perkinson.
All right. Amazing stuff tonight. Thank you. I'll do a short little one for my baby can't not read about my wife, and then a little bit longer one. First one, the vision hole between the worlds. Your brown eye, like the very meaning of laughter, like pith or chocolate on the finger, like the moon made a blanket of close, soft night, dark and light at once. The shy mischief of girl, the heart of woman thigh, the sky in the form of mother, the taste of rye, your eye, the apple of mine. Next one is called The Color of Matter. Matter is the ultimate riff. Rhythm is the pith. This is a whiff of the primordial myth. Jump off the cliff of meaning and fly. Science is reliance on a system of defiance, compliance with the postmodern captivity of levity, the brevity of selectivity, the polymorphic proclivity of acidity when the belly is an ulcer, contemplating Elon Musk through steel bars, under forgotten stars, hoping Mars is just a planet and not the perpetual possession of human imagination inside the fiction of an American predilection, insisting white is the color of truth. This is a question of who's really on the roof. Ski masks and spoofs, State Department goofs, sleuths and CIA proofs, and whiskey on the table. The whole country is a fable, a stable full of donkeys, filling the floor with fly-friendly spies and lies and unanswerable whys. Matter is a myth to the stiff-arming hieroglyph, seated at the table of aloof, without a single tooth to bite down with. Just what is the tiff all about? Matter is a mother of the utter necessity to shutter the other brother of the child already smothered by the cover of cluster bombs falling like feathers over the rock fans of Afghanistan, the pan beaten by the hand empty of either future or plan, calling for clarification of the connection between Pinochet and the Klan, dead Palestinians and my full oil pan, bone-thin Somalis and acres of shelves of spam, neglected national missile defense scams, and radioactive land. The matter that matters is the mind on food. The chatter of a child unacquainted with butterfly brands of exploding sands or crack house lines waiting for the pipe. The batter in the skillet on Saturday morning just waiting for syrup. The fatter side of the thigh. The latter making dreams dreamable rather than unscreamable nightmares of loss. The spatter of rain on a leaf. Beef that still chews its own cud. The relief when sleep comes, or the salmon run, or the guns finally grow silent. Matter is what matters when grandmothers are respected, corn collected for bloated bellies, change effected, the Department of Correction corrected, a different economy accepted, elected leaders actually elected, candy confected, without Gulf and Western profits. Until matter matters as much as money flatters, money will continue to sell matter for a splatter of collateral damage. The true color of what matters is not white, but the luminous night of all origins. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, James. We have one more person that has signed up on the open mic, but also pausing if anyone wants to, maybe one or two people want to write their name and add their name into the hat. You can do that right now. Just put your name and the word open. If you would like, if any of the other poets or writers that are here today would like to join. And while we're considering that and reflecting on putting our name, not putting our name, watching our names, we would like to call our next person to the open mic who goes by one name and put one name on the open mic. Please let us welcome Mary.
Hi. This first one is called Genocide. I got in the habit of writing poetry in the morning when back when Ron was around, and he would call me every morning at like 6 o'clock to write poetry. Genocide. I wrote this the day after the 2016 election. I needed water, and there was no water, only poison, and another day of anger, crushed like my fingers in the bright factory where I spent the nights, until I was forever gone as my brother shot dead. But blood does not count, just another day of cleaning the edges of hope and explosions of anger, more anger, just anger. I see no welcome, only empty sandwiches, churned out by ashen fingers, hermetically sealed like the coffins we can't pay for. Life support withdrawn because we have no money for life, only war and the triumphs of the better man. But some of us were better men, or women left alone now, with a single cup of tea and government cheese, counting the pennies left. We are products of the lesser evil, grown on a diet of fear. Our minds see violent or stop in a comfortable place, waiting for salvation, eyes closed against the bright colors of the foreign, the other standing next to us or knocking at the door, just as we don't know our children when they open their empty mouths. And here we are all these years later, and this morning I wrote something about what's going on in the Middle East. Burning winds carry the song of bombs, the staccato dance of kill, the cries of women bound in barbed wire, deafened by hollow prayers, collecting stones, burnt teeth, the last poetry of a buried child. We live in a world blinded by poison flowers, eyes sealed by grit and ashes, drinking burnt coffee, sweet, creamy, filtered, no grounds left to speak the future, like the ancestors spoke under a brilliant moon. And then my last one is Savasana, which if you're into yoga is the corpse pose. And this one was for Ron. Those of us who knew Ron know Ghost of Ron hangs around. Memory words lick my consciousness. Your lips breathe dreams in the key of funk. I hold your heartbeat, chanting rhythm, tongue and bone in my living palm. Broken goddesses tore your flesh. It's gone now. Laughing women haunt worn motels. They dance for you. At Wild Edge, in dark reflection, you ask for truth. Your soul anointed in pot liquor and beer sheds its skin. Your beauty, a ghost, captured by sun. Chicken bones rattle in laughter and tears. Their ashes fed 1,000 poems. Enlightenment, a sky-crazed kaleidoscope. I breathe now, voices calling, between earth and forgetting. Exhale.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Awesome. Yes, we are all reminded that, yeah, sometimes, just you have to take a moment and breathe. Take a moment and breathe. Inhale, exhale. Absolutely. We have another writer, another reader has signed up for the open mic. And we have a few minutes remaining, so we're going to go ahead and take that. And then if any of you have any questions, again for our feature, feel free to go ahead and put those in the chat, and we will either read those for you or we'll get you on camera and mic to read them yourself. But in the meantime, I'm going to invite Miss Aurora Harris to the microphone. Ro, you have the floor. Ro, you're muted.
You're muted.
Your microphone should be in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. So if you hover your mouse down there, you should see something that looks like a microphone, and underneath the words are mute. And if you click that, that should unmute you.
It might
Okay,
potentially.
can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to join so late. But I wanted to read this piece. It's called I'm Sorry I Can't Talk. I'm occupied at the moment. And I wrote this when we all got together years ago against the war that was happening in Palestine. I'm sorry I can't talk. I'm occupied at the moment. Where the days appear godless, I know God will save us. When our villages and crops are burning urns of flesh and bone, garbage and ashes. Where the good hours of daylight are reserved for them. I'm sorry, I'm busy, I'm occupied at the moment. Where our lives are measured by the length of a rifle, a drop of water, the width of a tank, the boom of exploding missiles, where everyone is a target, where the bakery can't bake, where there is no water, sugar, or flour, and particles of dust and shrapnel with blood, tears, and terror that we inhale are mixed with our spit to form the bread dough that fills our bellies. I'm sorry, I can't talk. I'm occupied at the moment. Where the market is closed, where there is no meat, where we gave up farming behind the wall they built, where our village is a part of their firing range for practice, where the air smells like gunpowder, where the place where your Jesus was born has been blocked as Arab land, where the well called Lahai Roy, where God gave Hagar and Ishmael water between Kadesh and Bered, has been stolen by Israelis to route the water to Romanian Jewish settlers. I'm sorry, I can't talk. I'm occupied at the moment. I'm in an occupied state where our lives and cultural memories are being destroyed, where apartheid, genocide, and oppression are sanctioned, where every drained well is a haunted ancient flute carrying dull tones of buried requiems disrupted. Sit, sit, rest. Sit by this well. Press your ears against these stones. Maybe you will hear the music that accompanies starvation, thirst, suffering, death, tears, wailing, prayers and cries for justice and peace. That's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Aurora.
You're welcome.
I have one more question for Kim Hunter, and then I think we'll probably close it up and move towards the conclusion. In the previous question, Sonia asked and recognized your relationship to history. Could you talk about how, if there's anything with your approach to how you take issues of history and events, and how do you apply your imagination to it? How do you is there any way that you think about your writing in which you take these facts of history and then you take it to these far out places?
Well, oftentimes with the poetry, what happens is a phrase will come to mind. So the Detroit poem that I read, Detroit, the war years, 1701 to present, I just began, two things were on my mind, and I don't know why these two things were. Henry Ford is often credited with inventing the automobile. What he actually invented was mass production. He actually perfected he didn't even invent the mass production. He perfected mass production, which is a real double-edged sword on a whole lot of shit. But then I thought one of the other things that Detroit is famous for was Motown and the whole factory thing. Motown itself too was both praised and accused of being a music factory, right? Berry Gordy came from the factory, and what he set up was a musical factory. That's a double-edged sword as well. And I think those things are rolling through my mind. So it begins with something really specific. And if I'm really lucky and good, tangible, and expands out from there. I mean, what I hear your question is how do I deal with social issues and put them into the work? And I found it to be very different from poetry versus the novel. And without going into a whole thing, the novel began life as an attempt to do a one-page, I forget, there's a technical term for it, summary of your film. I was trying to do a film. I've been trying to write a film script for years with no success. That one page, was just a basic summary. And that came from something, again, really tangible and specific. So I'm gonna get there, believe it or not. So John Glenn, the first US person to orbit the Earth, said once, he realized at one point that he was sitting atop a massive explosive that had been created by the lowest bidder because it was a government rocket. And that phrase stuck with me, and I started to write about this boy who was on this ship that he didn't want to be on, and it was totally surreal. That somehow got switched to be a girl because I had gone through this thing about this. People had said that if you have this thing, switch the genders of the people and see what happens. So I switched it to a girl, and she ended up being forced to be on a rocket, but she's going to do reconnaissance for this factory where the product is being made, but it's stopped being shipped, and they don't know why, and they're getting no communications. And the only person they can force, the company is run so poorly, the only person they can force to go find out what happens in their money-making factory is this girl, this teenage Black girl, who is sentenced to do a free internship for 5 years because she did this thing called I forget this. It's a sort of jaywalking that she did. I forget what the term was I used in the book. But see, there's a bunch of things coming together like that. So there's the carceral state. There's kids not having jobs. There's Black people being forced in positions that they are told are good. Like, she says this 5-year free internship is supposed to be good for her life. It's virtual slavery. So like, there was just a whole bunch of things in my brain. I won't even get into what the drug that they're making on this thing, because that's a whole other. They're making this drug for men in this factory. So it starts with something specific. Things are stewing around in my brain. And I've learned from poetry to try to get it down to the things. William Carlos Williams, no ideas excepting things. I find that to be very valuable, even if it's not true all the time. But I try to put that into the prose work as well. But there's definitely a chasm between the prose work and the poetry, because poetry has many fewer rules than poetry has many fewer rules than narrative. People like to eschew narrative, but it keeps people occupied. It keeps people reading. Poetry, you don't have to keep them reading except for a short time, so you can do a lot of crazy shit. Yeah.
Well, Olabi, it's not a question that I have. I want to jog Kim's memory and show him this.
Oh, wow.
Do you have this still?
I don't. I do not.
That's a flash from the past.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't think it's in here, but the one poem that was very memorable when I first heard you read, it had something to do about bullets on your pillow or bullets in your mouth.
Oh. Yeah.
Quite a memorable image.
Yeah. That poem exists somewhere. I would like to take a look at
Would
that,
you
because
like this? Okay.
I totally forgot. I don't even know. How did you get a copy of it? I don't even
Well,
remember.
you were giving them to everybody, and I keep things like this. But
Oh,
also
wow.
one little Kim Hunter factoid. Kim filmed an 8-minute film for of Ruby that it's the only screenplay that I wrote. And that is something that is just out there in the ether. My copy of it was damaged in water, so it's just
Wow.
it's out there, Kim. So you don't have to worry that it may come back.
Wow. Yeah. That was
It's
that
a
whole
memory.
that whole night, just really briefly too, that film was made for a performance. And I think I mentioned this at another time. Farouk Zebe played saxophone, Brad Felt played tuba, and who was the guitar player?
Patrick Lanier.
Patrick Lanier played guitar. And you had quite the outfit on. There were other people performing, but it was called Out of the Box.
Yes.
And was
Well,
at 1515 Broadway.
the first night was called Creating Ritual Writing Silence, and Leslie read, she was Akasha, so she read from my past life reading, and I did, I painted my face, wore a mask and a veil, all in succession as I was doing the piece. So
Did you not have a cig?
it
Did
was
you have a cigar?
multimedia. Pardon me.
Did you
Yeah,
have a cigar?
that was at the Dally in the Alley when I had the cigar.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
But I think
I
Charles
wish.
had his hand up, and then I mean the Zoom isn't going to shut up on us like a box, but I know we're right at the edge. But Charles had his hand up.
Charles, we have just a couple minutes left. I know
Yeah,
we wanted
just
to-
well, I just want to thank him for incredible reading, and I sent a direct message to Kim. Kim, I know you're aware of probably Walter Benjamin, the
Oh, yeah.
your use of history and how machines and experiences change us as we're literally walking along through life. That rhythm was so powerful and distinct in the poems you read. And God, I just want to thank you for that. That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
much.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. I know we could literally go on forever, but we do have stuff we got to do, and everybody's got something to do tomorrow morning. I know. But in the meantime, please do just carry this evening and this energy with you as you go about your week. Please join our Facebook page, the Ron Allen Project Public, and follow us on Instagram at the Ron Allen Project. Do those things, just keep up to date and stay in touch with us. Check out our newly launched website also at www.ronallenproject.org. There's some links, I believe, that are being dropped in the chat for you, so you can take them there as well. You want to visit our Horizons in Poetry YouTube page. There you can review all of the events from 2022 and 23. You can also access the playlists of some vintage Horizons in Poetry, some time with Ron Allen in Los Angeles, the 360 tour of the exhibit, which also includes some of the digital content, and videos of the plays.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Taking that little pause because this is our last planned Horizons in Poetry event within this particular season, within this particular grant, within this particular commitment. The team is going to come and see what the coming year can bring. Each of us will see what the coming year can bring. The Ron Allen Project will see what the future will hold. You just heard a little snippet of some memory lanes and some recollections and some collaborations. Another one that just to bring to mind was Hipology, Horizons in Poetry, the 1990 anthology that featured Kim Hunter and many others. All of the featured poets this year were featured in that collaboration, edited by Ron Allen and Stella Cruz. We want to just thank everybody, thank all of the co-hosts from both years, thank all of the featured readers. Thank you, Kim, for joining us today and for being our feature reading and preparing the dynamic poetry and prose. We want to thank Autumn Keynes, who's been the virtual assistant here at every single event, and Ascended Visions. Check out the chat if there are any links from the co-hosts, any links from the artists. In conclusion, the event was made possible by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, supported by the Hannan Center and the Kayrod Gallery in Detroit. And we'll all just give our silent, however you want to do it, raise the roof, however you want to do it, for the Ron Allen Project for bringing us here together. And we look forward to the mystery that 2024 is going to be. Autumn's going to cue up our final video and take us on home. Happy Halloween.
time and space in the city. In the street funk on Mac, the smell of the junking junk of the human mind. Ground Zero television heroes, Bailout Cruise and death in my pen. Flag waving thunder, Babylon slumber. In time and space city, working the money pimp computer slave. New mind stomp of circumstance and pomp. And death is video glass and corporate rap. Baggy head winning superstars on deep ribbing trips of ego. And time and space of the city crawls from my tongue like Friday night dressed in hero's cheek drag. As a chiseled beat of soul and sleep, conch fried sweet. In labor's price jail, in prison perpetrating schemes and doo-doo dreams of beauty. In time and space in Detroit is their mega mind. Backspace is ground zero. Greyhound escapes. And fake shake depth and illusory wealth. And the HMO is dope, smoke, taupe, factory hope. Stereo blues in Center City. And the wicked are celebrated. Resuscitated shells watch we die in the living lifetime. They space change are funky, junky shifts. And we blow riffs of walls and winners and movie renters. For miles in the sky and the sweet flag, goodbye. And we become the dawn of time and space. And neon freaks in the deep fix of channel hip. We are again exploded and eroded youth decay. And money won't speak, and time won't creep. We fall into the deep sleep of yes. An affirmation of impotent masturbation. Looking for the good in canned reality time. And we space in the limits of man. And think of cesspool Sundays. We only see the paper heads, paper worlds, the DNA. The space won't speak and time won't creep. And we scream at the glitter of time. Paraded as life. Real as asphalt. Real as industry. Real as death. Two-legged money machine and the speak of doom. Pimped out cartoon war zones between the mind of God and plastic knives. And the rope genius of man. Spitting techno plans. The secret ritual futures of slave work and flesh. And the hype of sex. And the hype of speed, proto-cerebral greed. And the time and space in Spirit City is in the gate of the mouth and hustled bouts. And her head is only a rack for skin. City Hall Mall, only a hat of the freed to see seeds of the common vine. And penny witches of cool. And master fronts of liquid games in the street of color. And dreams that break all speed rhythms of perpetuated nows. And time is the double and space is never level. As the media limits the real. Sugar-coated pills of glitter and money won't speak. And time won't creep. Insane boogie brain, lame drain of blood on channel hip. The pimp of nasty trips of time and space in the city.